Welcome. You're watching the Moody Lawyer. Justice served with experience and integrity.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Moody Lawyer. I'm Matt Skye. Today we'll be speaking with Josh Moody, a seasoned attorney from Southern California with a rich background in law enforcement and a comprehensive legal career spanning criminal justice, personal injury, and civil matters. Let's dive in. Josh, great speaking with you today.
Hey, great seeing you too, Matt.
So Josh, just to kind of kick things off, can you tell us about your upbringing in Southern California and how it influenced your decision to pursue a career in law?
I grew up here in Southern California, lived in LA County for a good part of my life. Moved out here to the high desert in Apple Valley when I was in high school. Went to college up here, went to Cal State San Bernardino, kind of stayed local in the area. Continued my education, went to California Southern School of Law, which is down in Riverside. It was the closest law school here in Southern California that was local. Been living here ever since, so about 30 years now.
Amazing. And so, just to give our viewers some background, you have a lot of time as a patrol deputy and a detective, which is really kind of unique, I think, in the legal world. Am I right on that?
Yeah. So I became a deputy sheriff. I got hired in 1998. I got my associate's degree in criminal justice from the local community college up here. I was 21 years old, wet behind the ears, but learned quite a lot, especially with the criminal justice background. A lot of it is pre-law, and there's a lot of people who I knew and went to school with who became attorneys. I went a different path and became a deputy sheriff. Worked with the sheriff's department for close to 18 years. And at that time, I worked many different assignments, including patrol. Started out with patrol in Apple Valley, which is where I still live, where I currently work, where my office is. It's a really great place to be from and to work in. From there, I also got promoted, became detective. I worked in crimes against children. I worked in homicide. I did a lot of administrative work as well. And during that time, talking to other people who I knew who were lawyers, and being that I had this pre-law background as well, that's when I kind of decided to enhance my career and further my career by going back to law school, like I said, down in Riverside, and went to school at nights while working days. And here we are.
And how does that, background as a detective, that background in legal enforcement, shape how you handle criminal and civil cases in your private practice?
Definitely so much different than somebody who maybe just fresh out of undergrad and goes straight into law school, because everything we did as police officers was preparing cases for court and preparing cases for trial, particularly in homicide and crimes against children. Every detail is important and everything is documented. And for law enforcement today, it's even more so now than it was then. There are so many things that law enforcement does, and I as a law enforcement officer did, that never even made it into a courtroom. But you would spend hours or days working on something in case you needed it for a courtroom. So as an attorney now, I expect that same type of work going into our cases. For clients who come into us, that same type of work and work ethic needs to be applied here when we're helping people as an attorney. I think a lot of attorneys who have different perspectives, they don't necessarily see a lot of the details. They're more of a big picture person or a big picture attorney. But as law enforcement, there were so many minor details, just down to minutia. And I've carried that with me my entire life and into my law practice here.
Yeah, it's a really interesting, comprehensive background you get, getting to see both sides. Just curious, is there anything as a deputy sheriff that led you into this transition into becoming an attorney?
Not any one particular instant, I would say, or any one particular scenario, but I would say a lot of different things, but it was more along the lines of my friends who needed help, or somebody I saw who needed help more than what a police officer could do. I would say one case in particular, a friend of mine got in a little bit of trouble for something that was really minor. And I thought that the attorneys who helped him in that case, obviously they were attorneys and they were going it through the legal process. So they were in a position to help him more than I could, because once we prepare a case, it then goes to court. Well, I wasn't an attorney. You're not allowed into court. You're a witness just like everybody else. And I always thought that was really good for these attorneys who protected his rights. And I think that was a huge one instant, but it was more along the lines of, yes, there's only so much you can do as a police officer. You take your case. Sometimes your case is this thick. You take it to the district attorney or you take it to whomever. And at that point, you're done. It is up to then the attorneys, and it's up to that point in the legal field to play its process out. And that's where I was kind of getting frustrated where, well, I don't want to hand the football off anymore. I want to keep the football. And that's where I am today. So now I get the ball, and now I get to run with it and take it even farther than I did before.
It's really interesting. I assume that's a pretty significant transition. Were there any kind of significant hurdles or challenges in making that shift from being on the law enforcement end into moving to the legal side? That's quite a difference.
Certainly. I mean, it's difficult. You have to change your way of thinking for sure. And you're kind of thinking on the same plane, but now you have to take it a step higher and think differently. The toughest part was definitely going to night school. There were and especially working a place like homicide or crimes against, I was in homicide at that time. One of the toughest weeks or months. So we'd go to school about 6:30 at night to about 9:30 at night. Woke up, I think it was a Tuesday, worked our regular shift, go to night school, 6:30 to 9:30. 10 o'clock at night, get called out for an officer-involved shooting. Went out. So by the time I get there, it's probably 11 o'clock at night. We worked from 11 o'clock at night all the way through Wednesday, all the way through Wednesday night, all the way through to Thursday morning. I got off work probably Thursday morning at noon or so. Went home, got a few hours sleep, went back to class at 6:30 at night to 9:30 at night. And yeah, so those kind of things get difficult. And yeah, of course, law school is more than just showing up. Most of your work in law school is actually outside of the classroom. You're spending your entire weekends and weeknights studying and preparing. Those were definitely the biggest challenges. So now when I get even these big cases and big trials and you're up all night and you're preparing for the next day, it's nothing compared to what I went through back in law school and working with the sheriff's department, because I get to go home at least. and back then I did not. You're out in the field a lot. So that definitely prepared me for the work that's ahead for sure.
When you're deeply involved in criminal law and civil law, you were touching on this. How do you manage the complexities between these two different areas? Because there's quite a contrast between the two worlds.
That's a good question. It's really not that difficult if you know how to handle your caseload and your cases and really understanding your clients. When I get a case, and whether I'm preparing, whether it be today or tomorrow, the number one thing an attorney needs to know in any case is, where am I at? Where are we at in this case? Are we pre-litigation? Are we post-litigation? Have we just filed it? Where are we at in litigation? Did we file a motion? Did the defense file a motion? Same thing in criminal law. Where are we at? Have we just arraigned? Are we at a prelim? Is it a misdemeanor? Is it a felony? So the number one thing in any case is just knowing where you're at. And you know where you're at by being familiar with your cases and knowing your clients and knowing what your client needs and where your client is heading. People who maybe take on too much, you can get confused, especially like you said, between criminal and civil, they are very different. If you just pick up a file and you're not prepared, you may not know where you're at or where you're going. San Bernardino County, the courtrooms here are very segregated in the sense that Victorville courtroom does only, for the most part, criminal. Barstow does family law. San Bernardino Central does civil as well as criminal and other things. So if you know where you're going and you know where you're at, that's how you keep tabs on both your criminal and civil cases, and just knowing where you're at, knowing your clients and knowing your cases, because they are different, but they are similar as well. I mean, the same rules of evidence apply across the board. Same standards of proof exist across the boards on a lot of matters. Obviously, in criminal law, you're talking about reasonable doubt, but a lot of times that's just when you get to a jury trial. A lot of times you may have a preponderance standard for a certain type of motion or for a certain type of bail hearing. You have different lower standards. So again, the most important thing when you have a caseload and you're handling different types of cases is, where are we at in this process? Where is this client at in their stage of their case? And where are we going?
When you're looking at those different client stages, I suspect there are a number who may just be wary of the legal system in general. How do you build that kind of trust when bringing them or guiding them through that world? If
you ever met me, you know that I'm a straight shooter. You have to be upfront and you have to be honest with your clients, and you have to explain to them the process and tell them what's going on and what to expect. And that trust comes. It starts with when they call you, because you have to have a good reputation before they even call you and before they even contact you. If you have a terrible reputation of somebody who's always late, or somebody who misplaces files, or somebody who forgets where they're at, or who doesn't know where they're going, you're going to start off a step behind. If you have a good reputation of, keeping communication with your client, getting good results, keeping your clients informed, that builds the trust. And the trust continues when they come in and explaining the process to them. Now, a lot of times people, like you said, they are wary. They're not trustworthy. They have all these things happening to them. If they're in a car accident, a car accident is very traumatizing. Being arrested is very traumatizing. They have all these things happening to them that they may not have asked for. And now they're coming to me and they want all their questions answered. I can give you a basic framework, but until we start the process, the legal process and the legal network, there's just 1,000 different branches that can possibly happen. So I try to explain the big picture, explain where we're going, what the next step, maybe the next 2 steps are, because if you try to explain 20 steps ahead, you may not even go down that road because of what the other party's doing or what the results you have at your previous hearings. Constant communication, and really just people just get upset and they get worried when they don't understand. And when you explain it in a way that they can understand, that usually takes a lot of the stress off of them.
When you say people don't understand, are there any common misconceptions you encounter regularly?
Yeah, regularly. A lot of times in criminal cases, people come in and I want this case dismissed. I don't have that authority. I'm just an attorney. If the district attorney is going to bring charges against you, they're going to file a complaint and you're going to have to answer that complaint. That's a big one. People come in a lot. I need this case dismissed. Number one, it's unethical. We're not, in the rules of California, we are not allowed to promise particular results. Even if I think your case is great and I think it's outstanding. And even in these cases, I have a lot of cases that my personal opinion, charges should not have been brought. But they were, so you have to deal with it. So that I think is a huge misconception. And I see attorneys. I don't think it's right, and I don't want to pass judgment on other people, but I'll see attorneys call district attorneys or call police officers and tell them that they have no case and drop the charges. And that's not really proper. The proper way is to win it in the courtroom, bring their case, file our motions, do what we can. That's the right way. And then on this, as well as with car accidents, most common misconception about car accidents, people think is that somebody else ran into me. I was minding my own business. I didn't do anything wrong, and they're going to make it right. And they don't. The insurance company's purpose is to make money. You pay premiums every month, just like I do. And their job is that when their client injures somebody is to pay as little amount as possible to get out of that case. Car accidents take a lot of time, as do work comp cases, because they're trying to pay as little as possible to keep their business going. We do get good results, but I have to stress patience, and you have to be patient, because the misconception is when people come in, they just expect we're going to write a couple letters, we're going to make a couple arguments, and we're going to get the maximum amount of money. And that just doesn't happen in your typical case. I'm talking, and this is every case. This is everything from a minor fender bender to wrongful death. Cases where they just accidentally hit your bumper to where they killed a family member. They're trying to pay as little as possible. It takes time. So that's a huge misconception. And and there are people who say, we'll get you as much as we can, as soon as we can. Well, we do too. We try to get it as soon as we can, but I'm also, in terms of building that trust, I'm not going to tell you I'm going to get you your case done in 30 days. We're going to work it, we're going to do it, and we're going to work it the right way. And same with criminal case. If we take it to trial, we're going to do it and try to get you a not guilty, obviously. And if we can get it dismissed before that, we will. But those are the common misconceptions in my legal profession that I've encountered.
Now, it's interesting what you're saying in terms of how different firms may handle it differently in terms of going to trial or not. Just to the broader point, when you take into account larger cities like Los Angeles, how do you differ in terms of the way you handle cases versus other attorneys?
Well, for one, look, we're in rather small community in Southern California. In my firm here, I'm the only attorney here. So every case I take, I approve, I take on myself. Every case that gets worked, I'm doing the work myself. Now I have a staff who handles day-to-day things such as getting records, filings and things like that. But in terms of the actual legal work getting done, I'm the one who's doing it. And that's from the very beginning, from the time that you come in and you come into our office and you meet with me to the time that the case is over, I'm handling the case. A lot of the bigger firms, the person you're hiring, you'll never see because a lot of times they're the head person of the firm or they're a spokesperson. And they have tons of people working for them who just assign the cases based on values of cases. And a lot of them spend a lot of their money and just in tons of advertising. High volume. We're not a high volume firm. We're a high quality firm. We have a lot less cases than they do, but the quality of the cases we take on are much higher, and it gives me more time to work on them. So that's the difference. And firms from different areas don't necessarily understand the details of this local community as well as people like local attorneys do, because we're here every day. And we handle it every day. The juries are different, and every courtroom has different juries and different jury pool. That's just irrefutable. I don't practice a lot in LA, so I don't know. The juries in LA would be so different than the juries that we have out here in San Bernardino, and federal court's different than state court and local court. So, and there are people who want a big firm. They want, even if it's a small case, they want to know that there's 100 attorneys who work at this firm, even if they're not looking at your case. And that's fine if that's what you need, because it goes back to your previous question of how do you build trust? If somebody needs a big firm and they want a lot of attorneys who are available, then then you need to go there because that's what makes you comfortable. But if you want somebody who's going to handle your case, and if you want somebody who's responsible for your case, then that's me, because everything that goes well here is because of me, and everything that goes wrong is because of me. The buck stops here. There's nobody to pass the blame off to, and there's nobody else to take the credit. It's here. So if that's what you're looking for, then I'm the person in this area.
Interesting when you're talking about these larger firms. Let's kind of get to the elephant in the room, right? A lot of people, when they need legal services, get concerned about cost. How do you address these concerns? How are you transparent with your clients up front? And what is the range regarding these costs?
For car accidents, it's real simple. You don't pay anything until the case resolves, until you win. So we advance all the costs. We pay everything up front, including litigation costs. When there's a judgment or a settlement, then you pay us a percentage off of that settlement. So it doesn't cost you anything. And I know a lot of people sometimes get leery of that, but that's pretty common in this type of area, because we take on cases that we believe in. If you have a case, we're going to take it, because if you don't get paid, then we don't get paid. And the more money you get, the more money we get. So I'm not trying to take on a case and get you to settle for the least amount of money like I know other people do. A lot of people like I said, it's about quantity. They're trying to get as many cases in and as many cases out as they can. I'm trying to get the best results for you, because the more successful you are, the more successful we are. And our success is determined on your success. And then as far as criminal cases, we are always working with people. If you have a good case and a case we believe in, we can always work with people. There are plenty of cases I've taken that they don't pay very well, but because they are cases that I believe in, or because, like I said, they're a case that maybe shouldn't have been brought, we work with it. So we're always willing to work with people especially when it comes to cost.
Yeah, it's quite a range, and it's certainly unique when you're taking on cases, maybe not that are the most profitable, but because it's something you believe in. To that point, kind of where do you see your practice in the future? What are your big picture goals? How do you want to continue serving your community in that way?
We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, and like I said, was my success is my client's success. If my clients are successful, this firm is successful and continues to be successful. If I continue to get lousy verdicts, or I continue to get lousy cases or lousy settlements, you're not going to be in business very long. One, your reputation is going to take a hit. And two, this thing called money doesn't come in. So as far as where do I see my practice, I see my practice and I see our firm here being as successful as our clients are. My client's success is more important than our success. And so as long as our firm is doing well, rest assured that our clients are doing better.
To this point also, how do you stay current with changes in law and at the forefront of legal developments? Obviously, I assume law, like so many fields, but particularly law, is a constantly changing landscape.
It is constantly changing, and you need to stay up on your training and taking additional classes. And I take numerous, I forget what they're called, but I don't want to speak legalese, but we call them MCLEs. I forget what they stand for. But it's a continued legal training. The state bar requires us to do a minimum amount of training. I think it's something like 20 something hours every 3 years. I'm averaging approximately 80 hours of training a year, just keeping up. And that's not even, and that's just the time that I keep track of. The fields are constantly evolving. The law is constantly changing. If you're not keeping up with the changes, then you're going to get left behind. The way to stay the most current is to have good friends and good connections with other successful lawyers. I'm very well connected to the attorneys here locally, and that's how I stay current and they stay current, because they may have a trial or they may have a case where some novel issue came up that's really interesting. And if you listen to them and you listen to how they handled it, it's going to be a few weeks or a few months where that same issue is going to come up for you. And it gives you a chance to research it. So that is a huge way to stay current, is just maintaining connections in the legal field and legal community, which a lot of places do not. A lot of places, they handle their training in-house. And obviously I do not, because it's just me. I am very much a go out and get as much and get as many different opinions of how things are going and way things are moving as I can.
I think as we sort of wrap up, one last question. Are there any key takeaways you would want our viewers to walk away with? If just one major takeaway.
Well, you said for one. See, you tell a lawyer for one thing, and I'm going to give you two things: patience and trust. The most important thing is go with somebody, because it's your case. It's not my case. It's your case. Go with somebody you trust. Go with somebody that you feel is going to handle your case the way you would if you had the training experience that I have. Just understand that it is not an overnight process. All you have to do is turn on the TV and look at all these legal cases. It takes months and years for these cases to work their way through. So be patient, but also trust. If you don't trust your attorney, I don't care how good your attorney is. If you don't trust him or her, you're not going to get the best results if you're constantly fighting or worrying about minor details.
It's a great point to end on. Everybody, thank you so much for watching The Moody Lawyer with Josh Moody. You can learn more about Moody Law at moodylawyer.com. And Josh, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.